The night was quiet on Earth. Stars twinkled softly in the black sky. In a large observatory near the mountains, a man named Dr. Harris sat alone. He was a space signal expert, working night shifts that no one wanted. Most of the time, the machines picked up random noise. Nothing special. But tonight, something was different. His computer made a soft beeping sound. It had picked up a strange signal from deep space. Dr. Harris leaned closer. The sound was repeating low, soft, and emotional. It didn't sound like a machine. It didn't sound like words. It sounded like crying. He played the signal again and again. Each time, the sound made his skin crawl. It wasn't static. And it wasn't just a space echo. He felt something. In it, pain, fear, and desperation. It reminded him of a child's voice. A child calling for help in the dark. He quickly recorded the signal and ran it through the translator tools. Nothing matched, no known alien language, but the pattern was clear. This was not natural. Someone out there was sending a message. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, a small escape pod floated through space. It was old, damaged, and running low on power inside the pod. An alien mother named Soraya held her young daughter, Lyri, close to her chest. They were the last survivors of their world. Their planet had been destroyed by a race called the Zarn. The Zarn had come without warning, burning cities, crushing armies, and destroying everything in their path. Soraya was a scientist, not a soldier. She had created a secret pod to save her daughter. She had added a signal device that would call for help, but only the most sensitive receivers could catch it. Now, as the pod drifted closer to Earth's solar system, the signal was growing stronger. Back in the observatory, Dr. Harris sent an emergency message to Space Command. "This isn't a joke," he wrote. "We've picked up a distress signal. Emotional, possibly child. Needs help," but no one answered. People had stopped taking him seriously years ago. They called him the Dreamer, a man chasing ghosts in the stars. So he took the signal to his old friend, Colonel Briggs. Briggs worked in Earth's defense department. He listened to the recording and frowned. "It's just static, Harris," he said. "Maybe a satellite bounced off something." But Harris didn't give up. "Listen carefully," he said. "This is a cry for help. Not just a sound." Back in the pod, Soraya coughed weakly. Her skin was pale, her body shaking. The pod's systems were failing. Oxygen was running low. She looked at her daughter and whispered, "Stay strong, Lyri. We are almost there." Lyri, just 6 years old, didn't understand everything. But she knew her mother was in pain. She pressed her small hands on the window, looking out at the stars, her eyes full of tears. Suddenly, the pod's computer blinked. It had picked up Earth, an intelligent life planet, breathable atmosphere, and safe distance from the Zarn. This was their only chance. On Earth, the signal grew louder in Harris's lab. Now it had another tone: panic. It was like someone was screaming. He checked the direction it was heading, toward Earth. He ran out of his lab and called the local military base. "Something is coming," he shouted. "A pod from space, carrying life." They laughed at him. Aliens. Crying aliens. That's a good bedtime story. But Harris knew it wasn't a story. It was real, and it was coming fast. In orbit above Earth, radar stations picked up a tiny object entering the atmosphere. Too small to be a spaceship, too fast to be a satellite, but no one moved to stop it. They thought it would burn up in the sky. The pod shook violently as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Flames licked its sides. Alarms beeped loudly. Soraya hugged Lyri tightly, covering her with her arms. "If we make it," she whispered, "find the humans. Some of them are good, and then crash." The pod slammed into a thick forest at the edge of a small town. Trees snapped, birds flew into the sky, and the earth shook. It left a smoking trail behind as it slid to a stop. Inside the pod, Soraya was unconscious, and Leary cried silently. Scared and alone, they had landed. But was Earth ready to help them? Far away, Dr. Harris watched the radar map and whispered, "They're here." The crash had been loud. Trees cracked and birds flew in every direction. Smoke rose from the forest near a small human town, but most people didn't hear it. It happened late at night. Only one person had seen the strange light falling from the sky. Her name was Eliza. She was 14, curious, and not afraid of the dark. She often sat outside after dinner, looking at the stars and wondering what else was out there. Tonight, she saw something bright fall from the sky. It wasn't a shooting star. It moved in a strange path, leaving fire behind it. Then boom. A soft explosion came from the woods, and the earth trembled under her feet. Eliza's heart beat fast. Was it a plane? A meteor? She grabbed a flashlight and ran toward the trees. She knew the woods well. She had explored them since she was a child. But tonight, they felt different, quieter, heavier. After 10 minutes of running, she saw a soft blue light between the trees. It wasn't like any light she had seen before. It blinked slowly, like a heartbeat, as she moved closer. She saw something metal stuck in the dirt. It was half buried. And smoking slightly, it looked like a capsule, round and silver with strange marks all over it. Eliza stepped forward carefully. The door of the pod was broken, hanging open slightly. She shined her light inside and gasped. Two figures were inside, one big, one small. The big one wasn't moving. The small one had large, glowing eyes and thin arms. It was shaking and crying silently. Eliza stepped back, afraid. This wasn't a person. It was an alien. The small alien saw her and pressed itself against the side of the pod. It didn't speak, but its eyes begged her for something help. Eliza felt something inside her heart. This alien. It was just a child. Very slowly, Eliza took off her coat and held it out. "I won't hurt you," she whispered. The alien child hesitated, then reached out a thin hand. Eliza placed the coat over the small body, which was trembling from cold and fear. She looked at the larger alien. It was still breathing, but looked very weak. There were burns on her arms and face. Eliza could see something was very wrong. She knew she couldn't carry both of them home, so she made a quick choice. She picked up the alien child, wrapped tightly in the coat, and said, "I'll come back for her. I promise." The child didn't speak, but it held on to Eliza with both arms. Eliza moved fast through the trees, careful not to make noise. She didn't want anyone else to see her. Not yet. At home, her father was in the garage, working on an old bike. He heard the door creak and turned around. "What the Eliza?" he said. "What is that?" She held out the alien child in silence. Her father, David, was a former army medic. He had seen strange things during his time in war, but never something like this. The child looked sick and weak. David didn't ask questions. He laid the child on the old couch in the garage and began checking its health. "Looks like minor burns, maybe oxygen loss," he said quietly. He started treating the wounds with a calm hand. Eliza sat near the child, whispering gently, "It's going to be okay. We'll help you." The child blinked slowly, still silent, but no longer crying. Back in the forest, the alien mother Soraya began to move. She opened her eyes slowly and looked around. Her daughter was gone. Panic rose in her chest. She tried to stand, but fell back. Her leg was badly injured. She pressed a button on the side of the pod. It showed her daughter's location. She was alive, nearby. That gave Soraya the strength to crawl out of the pod. She didn't know what kind of creatures lived on this planet, but she would do anything to reach her child again. Meanwhile, far away, satellites had picked up the pod's entry. Military teams were alerted, but they weren't told the full truth. They were told a foreign object had entered and might be dangerous. Soldiers were sent to the forest with drones and scanners. Not to help, but to capture. Eliza didn't know this. She only knew that a small, scared alien child had trusted her, and she wasn't going to let the world hurt it. That night, as the alien child slept, holding a piece of Eliza's coat, a silent bond had formed, one that would change both their worlds forever. But danger was already moving through the trees, and time was running out. The morning sun rose slowly. Its warm light touched the roof of the old garage. Inside, the alien child was still asleep. Wrapped in a soft blanket, Eliza sat nearby, her eyes heavy from staying up all night. She didn't want to look away, not even for a second. She felt something deep inside. Like this child was now her responsibility. Her father, David, stood by the workbench. Wiping his hands with an old towel, he had cleaned the child's wounds and given her water. Now, he was staring at something strange, a small round device he had taken from the alien's coat. It was smooth, silver, and warm to the touch. A small light blinked on top of it, like it was still alive. "What is it?" Eliza asked. David shook his head. "I think it's a translator. Maybe it helps them speak." He placed it on the table and connected it to an old power bank. The device made a soft hum, and then a voice came from it. A robotic but soft voice, searching, matching language, connecting. Eliza's heart skipped. "It works," she whispered. The alien child opened her eyes slowly and looked around. She saw the translator on the table and sat up weakly. David handed it to her, and she pressed. A symbol gently. The device blinked again, then spoke in a clear, broken voice. "My name. Leary. Please, Mama." Eliza felt her eyes water. She leaned forward and held the child's hand. "She's okay," she said softly. "You're safe now." Leary looked into Eliza's eyes and whispered through the translator. "You helped me? Why?" Eliza smiled. "Because I could," she said. "Because you needed someone." David stepped back, watching the two. He had seen many things in his life: war, pain, even death. But this was something different. A young alien girl, scared and alone, had found comfort in a human home, and he didn't want to break that peace, but he also knew the world outside wasn't so kind. People would panic if they saw her. Governments would try to control, not help. He turned toward the corner of the garage where his old military laptop was kept. He needed answers fast. He powered it on and connected to a private military network. His old access code still worked. He searched for anything related to space entries in the last 12 hours. And there it was, unidentified object, crash detected for Zone Alpha. The message said surveillance drones had been launched. Recovery teams were on the way. David cursed under his breath. "They're coming," he said. Eliza looked up. "Who?" "Military. They'll want to take her," he said, nodding at Leary. "But they won't help her. They'll lock her in a lab." Leary sat quietly, listening. She hugged her knees and said through the translator, "Please, don't let them take me. I'm scared." Eliza looked at her father, eyes firm. "We won't let that happen. Right, Dad?" David nodded slowly. "Not if I can help it." Then, Leary did something unexpected. She pulled out a glowing crystal. From inside her pocket, it pulsed with light and symbols. She placed it on the table, and the translator responded again. "Memory data key detected. Request, share message." David stepped forward. "Let it speak," he said. Leary pressed a button on the translator, and a soft hologram appeared in the air. It showed her mother, Soraya, standing tall in a lab. Her voice came through the speaker. "To any who find this, my name is Soraya, scientist of Aloran Prime. My world has fallen to the Zarn. They are coming to your galaxy. Please, do not ignore this warning. Inside this crystal is everything I know Zarn, biology, tactics, and ways to resist. My daughter carries it now. She is the last hope." The message ended, and the garage fell silent. Eliza stared at the fading image. The Zarn, a war. Another galaxy. David rubbed his forehead. This is serious. If what she says is true, Earth is in danger. Eliza looked at Leary. She said your mother is a scientist. Where is she now? Leary lowered her head and whispered, she was hurt. In the crash, I left her. David looked up sharply. You left her. In the forest. Leary nodded, her small body shaking. She told me to go with a human, to be safe. Eliza stood up fast. Then we have to go back. We have to find her. David frowned. The teams are probably already searching that area. If we go now, we risk getting caught. Eliza stepped closer. If we wait, she might die. David stared at her, his brave, stubborn daughter. And then he looked at the scared alien child beside her. He sighed deeply. All right. Gear up. We're going back. Outside, the sun was high. Birds flew through the trees, unaware of the danger below and deep in the woods. Soraya lay weak, barely breathing, but her heart still beat for one reason: her daughter was alive. And that gave her strength, even as soldiers in black armor moved closer through the trees. The forest was no longer quiet. Soldiers in black armor moved carefully between the trees. They didn't speak, didn't make noise. They followed a tracker locked onto the crashed pod. Their orders were clear: find the object, secure anything alive, and report back. Soraya lay hidden near the base of a large tree. Her body weak and trembling, she had crawled from the pod using only one arm and one leg. Her other leg was broken, her skin burned. Every breath was painful, but she didn't stop. She had to survive for Leary. Her daughter was her mission now. Not science, not data, just her child. She pressed a button on her wrist device. A tiny screen appeared, showing Leary's signal. It was moving. Soraya sighed in relief. That meant she was alive, but the screen also showed something else: danger was coming. Multiple human signals, armed and close, far from the forest. David's truck bounced down an old trail. He gripped the wheel tightly, his eyes scanning the road ahead. Eliza sat beside him with Leary on her lap, holding her close. The alien child trembled. Not from cold, but fear. Eliza looked at her father. Do you think she's still alive? David nodded once. She's tough. She made it through space and a crash. She's fighting. He paused. Then added, we just have to find her before someone else does. Leary's eyes glowed softly in the shadows. She reached into her coat and pulled out a second device, a small orb. It blinked in rhythm with her heartbeat. Through the translator, she whispered, she made this to help humans understand. She wanted peace. David glanced at the orb. Your mother built a lot of things, he said. Let's hope one of them can keep her alive a little longer. They reached the edge of the crash site and parked the truck behind some thick trees. Smoke still rose from the broken pod. David loaded a small first aid kit and grabbed his old army flashlight. He gave Eliza a walkie-talkie. If I say run, you run. Got it? She nodded, holding Leary's hand tightly. They moved quickly through the trees. Every shadow looked like a soldier, every sound like a drone. But Soraya had left a trail: burn marks, snapped branches, and small drops of silver blue blood. They followed the signs carefully. Suddenly, Leary stopped, her eyes wide. She pointed at a pile of leaves near a tree. David ran over, brushing them aside. There she was, Soraya, barely breathing, half closed. Mom? Leary cried through the translator, falling to her knees. Soraya opened her eyes slowly. She saw Leary, then Eliza, then David, and even with pain all over her body, she smiled. David dropped to his knees, opening his kit. Pulse is weak, he muttered. She's lost a lot of blood. He began working, quickly cleaning wounds. Sealing burns and stabilizing her leg, Soraya winced but didn't fight. Through the translator, she whispered, "You are helping me?" David nodded. "You're not the enemy. We protect those who need it." Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed. Through the forest, a drone, it hovered above the trees, scanning the area. David froze. "They're here," he whispered. "We're out of time." Soraya looked at Leary and reached into her coat. She handed David a small disc. "If I don't make it, this is everything's Arn plans. Their weaknesses. Give it to your leaders." David looked at the disc, then at her. "You're going to make it," he said, "but we're leaving now." He lifted Soraya gently while Eliza guided Leary through the brush. They moved fast, weaving between trees, ducking behind rocks. The drone followed them. Red lights flashing. Suddenly, voices echoed, human soldiers calling out. David turned to Eliza. "Take her and go to the truck. Now." Eliza grabbed Leary's hand and ran, hearts pounding, feet slipping on roots and leaves. David stayed behind, leading the soldiers in the opposite direction. He ran left, deeper into the woods, making noise on purpose. The soldiers followed, thinking he had the alien. Eliza reached the truck, threw open the door, and pushed Leary inside. She jumped in the front and started the engine. David had shown her how. The truck roared to life, and they drove fast down the old trail. Behind them, gunshots echoed, but they didn't stop. Minutes later, David came crashing through the trees, bloody and out of breath. Eliza slammed the brakes and he jumped in. "Go, go," he yelled. They sped off, tires kicking up dust behind them. The forest was filled with soldiers, confused and searching inside the truck. Soraya lay across the back seat, her hand in Leary's. She looked at David and whispered, "You trusted us. Thank you." David gave a tired smile. Sometimes you just know who's worth saving. And for the first time in her life, Soraya felt something rare on a foreign planet: trust. The truck drove through empty back roads, bouncing over rocks and dirt. The forest was far behind now, but the danger still followed. David kept checking the mirrors, making sure no drones or soldiers were in sight. Eliza sat silently, her hands gripping the wheel tightly. In the back seat, Leary held her mother's hand. Her small fingers trembling, Soraya was breathing. But only just. Her skin was pale, her eyes half open, every few minutes. Her chest rose weakly, then fell. She had lost too much blood, and her body wasn't healing fast enough. David had done everything he could, but Soraya needed real medical. Corallian care and Earth had nothing that could help her now. They pulled into an old barn hidden on David's land, miles from the main road. It had been empty for years, full of dust and rusted tools. But it would be safe for now. David carried Soraya inside and laid her gently on a makeshift bed of blankets and pillows. Leary knelt beside her, tears running down her cheeks. She whispered through the translator, "Please, don't leave me. Please stay." Soraya reached up slowly, her fingers brushing Leary's face. Her voice was soft and broken. "You are strong, like your father was. You will survive, my little star." Eliza stepped back, tears forming in her eyes too. She had only known this alien family for a short time, but the bond she felt with them was deep. This was no longer just about aliens or space. This was about family and loss. Soraya looked at David and Eliza, her breathing shallow, but her eyes steady. "I trust you." With her, with the crystal, the Zarn. "They are coming." David nodded firmly. "We'll protect her, I promise." The translator clicked softly as Leary leaned closer, her voice shaking. "I don't want to say goodbye." Soraya smiled weakly. "This is not goodbye, my child. I will always be with you. In the stars, in your heart." Leary lay her head against her mother's chest, listening to the fading heartbeat. The silence in the barn was heavy. Even the wind outside had stopped moving. Time seemed to freeze. Then, a final breath, a soft sigh, and Soraya was still. Leary's body shook with quiet sobs. She didn't scream, she didn't cry out. She just held her mother's hand as her tears fell silently on the blanket. David lowered his head. Eliza turned away, wiping her face. The air was full of sorrow, a sorrow too big for words. That night, they wrapped Soraya's body in cloth and placed her in a safe corner of the barn. Leary stayed with her the whole time, whispering soft words in her native language. David lit a candle and placed it near her, not as a signal, but as respect. Later, Eliza sat with Leary, trying to comfort her. She offered warm soup, a soft blanket, even a song. But Leary didn't speak. She just stared at the candle. Lost in grief, David walked outside, looking up at the stars. He felt something heavy in his chest. Not just sadness, but responsibility. That alien woman had trusted him with her child, and with a message that could save the world. And now she was gone. He pulled out the crystal Soraya had given him. He turned it in his hand, watching the lights blink slowly. He knew he had to get it to someone in power, someone who would listen. But not through official channels. If the military got it, they would hide it. He had to go public. Fast, back inside, Eliza finally broke the silence. She looked at Leary and said, "We're your family now, okay? You don't have to be alone." Leary looked at her, eyes red. Through the translator, she whispered, "Thank you for loving me, even though I'm different." Eliza reached out and hugged her tight. "You're not different to me," she said softly. "You're just Leary." That night, while the world slept, David connected his laptop to an old satellite modem. He uploaded Soraya's message to a secret online network used by ex-military engineers and whistleblowers. Then he sent the Zarn data to 10 different locations around the world. He didn't trust any government, not fully, but he knew some people out there still cared about the truth. The next morning, news stations across the globe began to report a strange alien signal and a warning message. Soraya's face appeared in digital form across screens everywhere. People watched in shock and disbelief as she warned them about the coming threat. Some called it a hoax, others knew better. The world had changed overnight, and it all started with a mother's love, a child's cry, and a human family brave enough to care. But now that the secret was out, the real danger was coming faster than ever. The Zarn would hear the message too, and Earth had just become their next target. The world woke up to confusion across cities and countries. Screens lit up with a strange alien message. It wasn't science fiction anymore, it was real. People saw a hologram of a tall alien woman, tired but calm. Her voice came through in many languages. "I am Soraya of Valoran Prime. My world is gone. The Zarn are coming. You must prepare. My daughter carries what you need to survive." Governments scrambled. News anchors stuttered. Some laughed it off as a prank, but not everyone. In a high-security military base, Commander Raynor watched the footage again. He leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "That escape pod. We tracked it," he said. He turned to his officer. "Send a team. I want that child and whatever she's carrying alive." Back at the old barn, David watched the chaos unfold on his screen. The broadcast had worked too well. Now everyone wanted answers, and many wanted control. Eliza peeked through the cracks in the wooden wall. "Dad, there's some black truck coming down the hill," she said. David grabbed his backpack and opened the trapdoor under the barn floor. It led to an old tunnel system built by his grandfather during wartime. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." Leary stood beside the candle where her mother had been laid to rest. She placed a small flower beside it and whispered something in her language. Then she followed Eliza and David down the steps. The candlelight flickered behind her, and the trapdoor shut tight. Outside, black-suited soldiers moved in, scanning the barn with drones. But the family was already deep underground, moving fast through tunnels lit by weak flashlights and pure determination. The tunnels led them to an old railway line hidden under a collapsed bridge. David had left a second vehicle there, just in case, an old Jeep with enough fuel for one last run. They climbed in, dusted and tired. As the engine roared to life, Leary pulled a device from her pocket, her mother's final invention. It looked like a sphere made of light and glass. It pulsed gently in her hands. Eliza leaned over. "What is that?" Through the translator, Leary explained. "It can send one last message, stronger, clearer, straight to the people, not just governments." David's eyes widened. A direct broadcast. To everyone. Leary nodded. It must be done. Or Earth will stay divided. Fear will win. They drove fast, heading to a hill where an abandoned satellite tower still stood. David had worked on it long ago, before it was shut down. It was risky, but it was the only way. When they reached the top, the wind was cold and strong. The sky above was gray, like a storm was coming. But Leary stood tall, her eyes glowing gently. They entered the tower and began setting up. David rewired the main power. Eliza cleaned dust from the console. Leary placed the sphere on the transmitter panel. The translator spoke. "Ready to broadcast. Begin countdown." But down the mountain, another black truck approached, armed soldiers, and this time, drones with weapons. Inside the tower, Leary began to speak, her voice soft but brave. Her words broadcast live across the world. "Humans of Earth, my name is Leary. I am a child of a dead world. My mother gave everything to bring you a warning. The Zarn are real. They will come. But you are not weak. My mother believed in you. I believe in you too." Eliza watched the screen, heart pounding across the globe. People listened, on phones, TVs, streets, homes, shops. Children stopped playing. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Doctors paused in hospitals. Something had changed. But outside, the soldiers had reached the tower. They surrounded it, weapons raised. "Come out with the alien." One shouted, "Now." David stepped outside. "Hands up, we're not your enemy." He shouted, "She's just a child." A drone flew up, targeting the tower's signal dish. Inside, Leary kept speaking, tears in her eyes. "We don't want war. We want peace. But we need your help before it's too late." Suddenly, a shot. The drone fired. The tower shook. Sparks flew from the panels. The broadcast signal wavered, then locked in again. Leary placed her hand on the orb and whispered, "One last word. Hope." The sphere glowed brightly. It sent a final burst of energy through the tower, then exploded in light. The signal traveled farther than before. Every corner of Earth received it. No one could deny the truth anymore. The soldiers backed off, blinded by the flash. When the light faded, Leary stood with Eliza and David beside her. Unhurt, but changed. The officer in charge lowered his weapon and looked at them. "You just gave the whole world a reason to listen," he said quietly. Leary looked up at him and spoke softly, "And now, you must choose. Fight each other or fight together." The wind blew gently through the broken window. Outside, the sky cleared. And for the first time since her mother died, Leary smiled. She had done what her mother asked. She had given Earth a chance. The world was no longer the same. The broadcast from the tower had reached every screen, every ear, every heart. People who had never believed in aliens now saw a child speaking with truth and pain. Her name was Leary, and she had changed everything. News channels played her message again and again. Some called her a hero, some called her a threat, but no one could ignore her, not anymore. In a quiet human base near the coast, Leary stood beside a large window. She looked out at the sea, waves crashing gently. It was peaceful, so different. From the world she had left behind, beside her, stood Eliza, now dressed in a light blue uniform, not a soldier's uniform, but one made for helpers and peacekeepers. She and Leary had been accepted into a new human-led program, the Unity Alliance. It was built by leaders, scientists, and peacekeepers from around the world. They had seen the warning, understood the risk, and decided to prepare Earth not with fear, but with hope. David was there too, working with engineers and teaching them how to use Soraya's data crystal. He had become one of the top advisors in defense planning. But more importantly, he had become family to Leary. Leary walked through the halls of the base. People greeted her with respect. Some still stared, unsure how to act, but most smiled. She was no longer a stranger. She was now the child of two worlds. 1 foot in her mother's galaxy, 1 foot on the ground of Earth, in the lab. Leary showed scientists how the Zarn weapons worked. She explained their weaknesses, how their systems could be disrupted. She showed blueprints her mother had hidden. In the crystal, the humans listened closely. She wasn't just a survivor now. She was a teacher, a messenger. Still, the pain of loss remained in her heart each night. She looked at the small flower she had placed for Soraya. She whispered her mother's name and thanked her for being brave, for sending her to a planet that still had kindness left in it. One morning, Eliza and Leary stood before a crowd. Leaders from many countries sat on chairs. Reporters filmed. Drones hovered. This was a historic day. A woman in a white dress stepped forward, holding a medal. She smiled and said, "For courage beyond borders, for giving Earth a second chance, we honor Leary of Valoran." The crowd clapped. Leary stepped forward slowly. She looked at the medal and then at Eliza. Then she spoke softly into the translator. "I do not need awards. I only need this world to be safe. That's what my mother wanted." The crowd fell silent. Her words weren't loud, but they were true. Later that day, in a quiet room, Leary and Eliza sat on the floor with a group of human and alien children. Some were from nearby planets who had arrived after hearing Leary's message. Others were human children learning about space and peace. Leary showed them how her mother's devices worked. Tiny holograms, light tools, translation orbs. The children laughed, played, and asked questions. In that moment, no one cared who was alien and who wasn't. They were just kids. As the sun set outside, David joined them, smiling. He had brought a gift, a handmade wooden star. He handed it to Leary. "I carved this from the same tree near the old barn," he said, "the place where we first found." Leary held the star close to her heart. Her eyes shimmered. "Thank you for finding me," she whispered. David placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just survive, Leary. You changed the world." Somewhere far beyond Earth, in deep space, the Zarn fleet moved in silence, their ships cold and black. But their scanners had picked up something new. Earth's defense network was changing. Energy signals were growing. Stronger, the leader of the Zarn watched the reports. He narrowed his eyes. They were not ready before. He said, "But now. Someone has warned them." They had not expected resistance, but now they would face it. Earth would not fall quietly. Not with Leary's message echoing across the stars. Back on Earth, Eliza and Leary sat on the grass, watching the stars rise. Leary pointed at one small light in the sky. "That's where my home used to be," she said. Eliza leaned back. "And now this is your home." Leary smiled. "Yes, and I will protect it. Just like my mother tried to protect me." The stars above twinkled gently, and for the first time in a long time, Leary felt peace not just for herself, but for two worlds she now belonged to.